All right, this is Unit 2, the team video analysis for the Horizon report. I'm Christina Yannick.
And I'm Lorena Gonzalez.
Okay, so I read the 2015 K through 12 edition. It talked about the significant challenges of technology adoption in the K through 12 education system. My report, my section of the report covered 3 of the 4 ISTE standards we used this week to evaluate the report. The first standard was design and develop digital age learning experiences and assessments. Some of the challenges that were mentioned in the report were authentic learning, teacher training and technology and instruction, and personalized learning. And the standard was met for authentic learning because the report mentioned hands-on experiences, students creating e-portfolios, and also working with business partnerships, which lead to working with the business partners gives them idea of fields they might want to go into in the future, and so it encourages them to take a college course, a degree course towards earning a degree in that field. As far as the teacher training and technology and instruction, throughout the entire section of the report that I read, they really talked a lot about pre-service coursework, which means before someone who wants to become a teacher graduates from college, they need to be taking courses that are geared towards technology, what it is, how you use it, and how to integrate it into instruction in the classroom once they graduate.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and on my article, I read a lot about on covering this standard about how teachers, well, this was more on the student side, how teachers were being encouraged more to allow the students to become creators, to sort of adopt that belief that students can be more than just receivers of knowledge. And so that's something that a lot of the schools in like New Zealand, those were some of the schools that were covered in my article, were schools in New Zealand where they allowed the students to basically create their curriculum based on their experiences, on their passion, and that way they became owners of their own learning. And teachers were more like facilitators, and they tried to try to leave the students to really experience their learning. So I think that was one part that really covered this standard right here.
My report talked a lot about that too, especially with the personalized learning challenges. Of course, you know, if it's personalized learning, that means it's student-centered, and more often than not, it becomes student-driven. They set their own learning paths.
Right, yeah.
And then the next standard that was heavily covered in my report was teaching, learning, and assessments. Some of the challenges that covered that were personalized learning. Teachers need to be able to design and implement learning experiences based on the needs of their students and the learning paths they have set for themselves. Rethinking the roles of teachers. Instead of being the quote-unquote sage on the stage, the one in the front of the classroom leading a lecture, they need to become facilitators, guides, and then students and teachers set the curriculum together. So the students become more autonomous.
Right. Yeah. And on my article, one thing that was mentioned related to this was how in order for, I guess, this technology to sort of move down, or sort of like the skills or the standard to really be visible, it has to start from the top. So if administrators model the use of technology or the use of strategies that allow the teachers to take ownership of their classrooms, then the teachers can model that for the students, model the use of technology, and model or allow students to also take ownership. So it sort of kind of goes down the hierarchy.
Okay. Another of the challenges is teaching complex thinking. This is really difficult, especially if you are a teacher who's already gone through your education courses and you're in the classroom and you're trying to teach students to think critically and you have no idea where to start. They're suggesting that this kind of teaching be covered in their degree plan before they even graduate. So it should be courses that they have when they're going to college. So some examples that they gave that really require a lot of complex thinking is coding and web design, anything that they might have to do some problem solving or troubleshooting with, and think about a path or a pattern to figure out how to get from one point to the next point. That requires a lot of complex thinking.
Right, yeah.
And the final standard that was covered heavily in my Horizon report was excellence in professional practice. One of the most difficult challenges is scaling teaching and innovation. It's really difficult to find an innovation model that you can implement fully in a school because, one, it costs a lot of money, and districts and schools don't always have enough funding to do a complete, from the top down, implement a complete innovation model. One of the ways they did suggest to circumvent that was to create networks so that you can practice and try out different models or different parts of the innovation. And of course, again, it comes back to teacher training and technology and instruction.
Right.
Before you even leave college, they heavily suggest that technology, I even think it should be to the point where it's a content in and of itself, not just, this is how you can integrate. Because there's so much out there and it changes so quickly that it is a content.
Yes, that's very true. And I think on that, I think it's hard to find one system that's going to fit all. Because, some of the things that my article talked about was you were talking about different socioeconomic status on different schools. There's Title I schools that cannot compete with some of those schools that have more resources. And also, like, for example, I work for Pearland ISD, and even though we are not a Title I district, we still have a lot of students that are in need and don't have access to a computer or to internet at home, but our school does not receive state funding to provide this kind of technology for them. Whereas if you go to a school or a school district that is a Title I school, they receive a lot more funding from the state, from the government, and they can use that. So some of those Title I districts have more possibilities of implementing something like a one-to-one or to provide students with resources that otherwise the kids couldn't access, but they are receiving more money. So it's hard to find something that's going to fit all the different areas of the world.
I agree. All right, so now we're going to go over to your points that were covered in your article.
Okay, and so mine, it was key trends accelerating technology adoption, and a lot of the key points were similar. On the first one, which is the teacher substandard, a way that it was covered is that it mentioned how teachers use tools like WhatsApp and even Facebook or some of those LMS like Edmodo to connect students globally and sort of give students, again, the chance to take ownership of their learning and let it be led by their interest. And then again, the model. So the more you students see that teachers are confident with technology or with a subject matter, the more willingly they will explore. Same likewise for teachers. If they see that their administrators are modeling certain strategies or are open to technology, then they will be more willing to also take on the challenges.
I agree. My admin is, really enjoys using technology, and she likes to be on the cutting edge and learn the new things. So she's not afraid of trying something new. And so because she's not afraid, then that trickles down to her staff. And so we have, of course we do have some that won't use technology, but for the majority, they are on board and they seek out their own training and their own learning. They find PDs to go to that aren't even paid for by the district. So we have a lot of teachers that are willing to explore. They're not afraid to experiment, and they would love for their kids to take over and be in charge of their own learning.
Right. And then on the second substandard, it was the same substandard to empower the learners. And again, like I mentioned before, some of the schools that were researched on my report were schools where they were implementing new systems, allowing the students to take on small projects and with minimal teacher intervention. So the teacher was just there if they needed ideas on how to reach out to communities or to community stakeholders, or to kind of make those connections. But the students were the ones that came up with the plan on how to go about the project, what they wanted to do with the project. So there was a lot of empowerment here because the students are allowed to take on big decisions. So they feel ownership, they feel unique, that they feel important. So that kind of helps with the self-esteem, and it helps to see education instead of, I got to go to class and sit there and be bored by whatever my teacher wants to tell me. I have a say in what's going to happen throughout my day. So I think that makes it even more exciting for the students. And on my last substandard was more for coaches and administrators, teaching, learning, and assessments. And on here, some of the my article talked about how there was a lot of money in I think it was New Zealand again, that they had received a lot of money, or they were trying to set aside a lot of money for professional development to empower the teachers, because a lot of teachers do feel like there's lots of technologies and there's lots of resources, but they don't have enough training or enough time to feel comfortable to implement those tools in their classroom. So one of them talked about incorporating something like a collaborative education lab, which composed creating extensive professional development, allowing teachers to get a peek into other classrooms and see how these tools were being implemented, and maybe get ideas. So it's kind of hands-on sort of, but just offering tons and tons of resources, more than giving them the tools, but ways on how these tools can be implemented.
That sounds like what my district's doing. They're building a professional development center. It's not just for professional development, but it's also going to be for CTE courses too, where the high school students who are on our career track, they can go and take classes there. So I guess my district is moving it in the right direction, huh?
Yeah, that's a good thing. You want to be in a district that can.
Yeah, I do. And I also think I remember hearing something that they did apply for to be a school of innovation too. So they're working really hard towards becoming a district of innovation.
That's really nice. And see, in my district, it's a great district, but I still find some of those administrators that are reluctant to push technology, and so their argument, and I mean, they're great administrators, but they still don't see the benefits of technology and the changes that technology can bring. So they're a little reluctant. So we still have some work to do in our district, and we have a little bit of both. But my experience has been more with those administrators that don't believe technology has, I guess, enough to offer to be pushed. So that's something that we continue to work on.
All right, well, thank you for listening to our discussion on Unit 2's Horizon Reports.
Thank you.